Are you guys ready? All right. Given that lunch is right after this, and we have a lot to cover, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So my name is Nandini Cheko. My nickname is Dini, and I'm one of the project directors here at ANJAC. So welcome to the Warehouse Sprawl workshop, which is always very interesting. Just as a note here, this session is being recorded. And we have a couple of microphones set up for folks to come and walk to and ask questions. So I'm going to introduce our panelists. Colleen McKirk, she's a senior planner with the Office of Planning Advocacy with the New Jersey Business Action Center. And we also have Jason Howell, who's with the Public Lands Advocate with the Pinelands Preservation Alliance. So Colleen's going to speak first, and then we're going to take about 5 minutes for any burning questions you may have from her presentation. And then Jason's going to hop on and he's going to do his presentation. And we should have plenty of time in the end for any other, all lingering questions. And I just want to give a quick plug to our resource center that's in room 123. Randy Rothmal, who just walked away, our ANJAC staff here, she's been working really hard on coming up with some trifolds on a variety of topics. And we have one on the guidance of warehouse development. So definitely stop into that room when you get a chance. So Colleen, do you want to step up here or? You're good here? You have your clicker?
Oh. Okay, thanks. Okay, yes. I'm Colleen McGurk with the Office of Planning Advocacy, which is actually under the Business Action Center. So I'll just tell you real quickly about the Business Action Center. The mission is to provide exceptional technical assistance, customer service, resources, and information as advocates and mentors for New Jersey businesses and municipalities of all size, categories, and diversity. They deal with export promotion, small business advocacy, and cannabis training. We're just going to skip through the next few and go straight to the Office of Planning Advocacy. Within the Business Action Center is in the Department of State, and an administrative support to the State Planning Commission is the Office of Planning Advocacy. We coordinate statewide planning to protect the environment and guide future growth into compact mixed-use development and redevelopment. It implements the goals of the state plan and the redevelopment plan to achieve comprehensive, long-term, smart growth and sustainable planning. And it integrates state planning priorities, climate resistance, renewable energy, and environmental justice with programmatic policy and regulatory land use decisions among our state agency partners and at all levels of government. With regard to the warehouse guidance, until recently, most large warehouse development in New Jersey occurred in places envisioned and encouraged in the state plan in smart growth areas, such as urban cores and nodes, near major ports and highway interchanges, and designated redevelopment areas, contaminated sites, and brownfields. That trend has changed over the past decade. Larger projects sought cheaper available land further from smart growth areas on farmland and forested sites in rural areas. Sites in suburban and urban areas that are poorly suited for large-scale projects were also cited. The logistics industry is extremely important to New Jersey's economy, but if not properly sited and scaled, it can result in negative impacts on the host and adjacent communities and transportation infrastructure that lacks adequate capacity. Wherever warehouse development happens, benefits and negative impacts will follow that must be carefully balanced and equitably considered. Rural and urban areas of the state are feeling the pressure for different reasons. Overburdened communities, valuable farmland, and environmentally sensitive areas. The location is very important. Near residential areas, overburdened communities, or other sensitive receptors expose people to air pollution, noise, traffic congestion, and other environmental impacts. An otherwise ideal location can result in substantial detriment to the transportation network if its intensity is out of scale with roadway capacity infrastructure. The guidance document was developed by the Office of Planning Advocacy to create comprehensive guidance for local and county governments to use when updating their master plans, zoning, and development standards, and when reviewing development applications. It represents the collaborative efforts and input of many state agencies, counties, communities, and interests, including what we heard from the public. On September 7th, 2022, following months of research, listening sessions, and a 50-day public comment period, the New Jersey State Planning Commission adopted its warehouse guidance. Many public commenters felt that the state should take a more active role in regulating warehouse development, but the SPC has limited powers. The State Planning Act does not provide the SPC with jurisdiction to regulate land use in New Jersey. The SPC does have the authority to develop statewide policies and guidance and provide technical assistance, which it has exercised in developing and adopting the guidance. We believe the guidance gives communities the tools they need to proactively plan for and locate desired warehouse development in a manner that makes for good neighbors and avoids negative impacts. The guidance aims to facilitate a proactive rather than a reactive approach. Once a developer has submitted an application to a municipality, it's too late to change the regulations that could help. We provide municipal factors to consider and balance when developing or updating a master plan and reviewing applications, land use, and development requirements. We encourage a regional approach to planning, siting, and facilitating logistics facilities. These guidance documents and policy statements describe how municipalities can utilize some or all of these areas to holistically address the challenges they face, such as the types of warehouses, municipal considerations, the role of redevelopment in brownfields, public health in overburdened communities, transportation, traffic, and road safety, sustainable design, mitigation best practices, community involvement, a regional approach, special resource areas, and the role of state agencies. There are 5 different types of warehouses: manufacturing facilities, terminal facilities, storage facilities, distribution facilities, and parcel facilities. Manufacturing is essentially a factory involving light or heavy industrial uses and fabrication. Terminal facilities involved with the transfer of cargo from one mode to another between air, land, water. Storage facilities is a standard or traditional warehouse. Distribution facilities is temporary storage and high levels of throughput for the market area served. The primary purpose is to fulfill orders in a timely fashion. Parcel facilities is primarily e-commerce and last mile centers designed to handle a high volume of online orders put in parcels, which has a high level of throughput and traffic. From the standpoint of a warehouse distribution center facility size, the following may be used: a major distribution center, which is considered a large-scale regional and/or interstate distribution facility having a minimum gross floor area greater than 500,000 square feet. A large fulfillment center is a large format regional fulfillment facility having a minimum gross floor area from 150,000 to more than 500,000 square feet. In this category, a medium fulfillment center would average between 250 to 350,000 square feet. Now, we have done a model ordinance that townships, municipalities can use, but we've done that from a conditionally used perspective. And so far, we've only designed that for 100,000 to 350,000 square feet. We are still designing for the larger warehouses. The last mile fulfillment center is a smaller local or area fulfillment center or station that primarily serves local markets, having a minimum gross floor area of 50,000 to more than 150,000 square feet. This category could include micro, small fulfillment centers of 3,000 to more than 25,000 square feet. Then there's the high cube warehouse. Instead of the standard model of storing goods on one ground floor, nearly all of the space is dedicated to the rapid removal of goods. It involves highly automated racking systems designed to reduce human labor while dramatically increasing vertical storage capacity. The resulting efficiencies translate to more trucks moving more products onto roadways. They can be from 10 to 14 stories. They have heavy truck traffic. There's emergency services concerns with equipment and training, and possible adverse impact on community character, which would involve view sheds, air quality, health, safety, and transportation. But it is less land consumptive, so less impervious coverage. So municipalities would need to first update their master plan and then their zoning ordinance. If this effort is not completed prior to receipt of an application, it would be too late to mitigate many offsite impacts that could have been avoided through proactive planning. Warehouse development comes in many shapes and sizes, and zoning should evolve and keep up with the changing variety of uses and trends. These differences could mean dramatically different impacts and outcomes, and whether a project is compatible with a site and beneficial to the community. Land use regulations should not simply lump general industrial or warehouse together any longer. Local governing bodies can ensure that they clearly define and distinguish between the uses and types. Include greater specificity as to the appropriate siting and design standards where permitted. At a minimum, communities should conduct a master plan re-exam and update their zoning ordinances relevant to redevelopment plans and land development policies. Municipalities seeing greater pressure for larger and/or multiple projects should consider undertaking comprehensive updates to their master plans and associated land use and circulation elements. Area siting considerations, organized in a compact form and located in state-designated smart growth areas, centers, nodes, state-approved sewer service areas, and other appropriate areas proximate to the state and regional highway network and rail lines. Exclude adequately buffer and protect areas and avoid sites comprising state-regulated areas and natural resources of local, regional, and state significance, such as adequate resources, aquatic resources, flood hazard areas, freshwater wetlands, riparian zones, transition areas, steep slopes, and threatened and endangered species habitats. Areas identified for preservation and/or protection under local, county, regional, or state programs. Any portion of land or site within a designated agricultural developed area. Larger properties comprising a prevalence of primary soils. Avoid the disproportionate location of large warehouse distribution facilities in overburdened communities, urban cores, and clusters that serve a regional market. Characterized by a preponderance of diesel-powered tractor trailers, particularly where air quality is characterized as chronically unhealthy. Other planning tools that could be utilized are impact analysis. Development ordinances should include requirements for impact studies so that communities can be more informed on their decision-making process on warehouse proposals. Land use, truck, traffic, and employee routes, the transportation network, supporting infrastructure, wetlands, floodplains, stormwater drainage, habitats, site remediation, cultural and historic resources, proximity impacts to residential areas and other sensitive receptors, as well as economic and employment factors and potential impacts on public and emergency services and facilities should all be considered. A cost-benefit analysis should be done. Municipalities should also request or conduct their own cost-benefit analysis to weigh project revenues against costs related to municipal services and impacts. Consider municipal wages, benefits, and employment demand to provide and maintain municipal services, facilities, and infrastructure. Impacts on local businesses, potential loss of value in surrounding real estate, diminished community character, quality of life, public health, and safety over the construction and lifetime of the project should also be considered. Redevelopment and brownfields are a good opportunity for such a siting for warehouses. The New Jersey Local Redevelopment Housing Law gives municipalities access to tools that can incentivize revitalizing distressed and potentially contaminated sites and avert sprawl. Tools include the ability to choose and designate redevelopers and execute redevelopment agreements that can provide incentives in return for certain public improvements, negotiate payments in lieu of taxes, pilots, allow the issuance of bonds secured by project revenues, and the power of eminent domain to acquire property. The statute removes certain constraints under the municipal land use law, allowing greater control over performance standards, including a much higher level of specificity concerning physical site planning and necessary infrastructure improvements. However, it requires that a site meet certain statutorily mandated criteria, and that designation requires a statutory mandated process. It has to be underutilized or contaminated, et cetera, as the criteria. Truck traffic can present substantial safety issues. A detailed analysis of all traffic and road safety aspects should be a requirement of the developer and specified by ordinance. Reviewing board should ensure that proposed truck routes can be identified that are away from downtown commercial retail centers, main streets, residential areas, school zones, recreational parks, daycare centers, overburdened communities, and other sensitive receptors. Municipalities are limited in what kind of off-site improvements they can require, though, of developers, including improvements to roads or other infrastructure. Studied traffic-intensive uses as part of a regional transportation plan, targeted corridor study, or update the land use and circulation plan in coordination with NJDOT, county, and regional agency partners as part of an inclusive public planning process. Ideally, this effort should be done as part of a comprehensive review of the municipality's master plan and land use ordinance update process. Design must not undermine or overwhelm valued community characteristics or the carrying capacity of physical and natural infrastructure. Adequate buffers for neighboring uses, provide sufficient landscaping to soften and screen dominating structural features, and reduce noise, dust, odors, and visual impacts. Design standards should also address a building's shape, scale, color, pattern, texture, and space, and line of sight in a manner that reduces both visual and environmental impacts. Defined entry features, columns, awnings, adequate windows, lighting, and a variety of durable materials all provide relief from flat facades. Municipalities should also encourage developers of new warehouse construction to meet enhanced green infrastructure standards that go beyond the state's minimum requirements in the stormwater management rules. We all know that solar is required on warehouses that are 100,000 square feet or more, but green roofs and green walls should also be encouraged. Early and consistent community engagement is central to establishing good relationships between communities, lead agencies, warehouse developers, and tenants. Access to community residents' on-the-ground knowledge and information about their concerns. Build community support for projects. Develop creative solutions to ensure new logistics facilities are mutually beneficial. If impacts are regional, planning should be as well. Given the undeniable importance of the warehousing and goods movement industry to the economy of New Jersey, its unique land use and transportation needs, and significant growth projections, a regional approach can be helpful to municipalities more comprehensively address and plan for locating, review, and accommodation of larger projects. County planning staff can play a vital role in these regional planning impacts and provide technical expertise and assistance to municipalities during the planning process. They can assist municipalities with warehouse siting, traffic issues, and may well be suited to addressing the issue on a wider scale. As part of any regional approach, it is important to recognize that counties have an extremely important, albeit limited, role to play in the review and approval of proposed warehouses and development projects within their jurisdiction. The New Jersey County Planning Act provides county planning boards with the authority to review all local development applications affecting any county roads, property, and/or drainage facilities. The statute further empowers county planning boards to adopt subdivision and site plan standards and procedures, including the authority to assess land development projects for their proportionate share of related infrastructure improvements to county roads and drainage facilities, which are the direct result of a rational access to the development, to reduce hazards to the general public caused by unsafe traffic conditions and/or flooding. One thing that could be done would be to undertake a regional approach, would be a technical advisory committee. This would be the county or regional planning agency could, with the assistance and support of their constituent municipalities, establish and administer technical advisory committees. Appropriate state agencies could also participate. The TAC could be most advantageous during the master plan process and for large-scale projects that have the potential for significant regional impacts. The role of a county or a regional TAC would be advisory. Its purpose would be to provide interested and effective municipalities with the means and technical support necessary to meaningfully participate in the wider review and analysis of proposed master plan updates and warehouse projects that meet certain established threshold criteria. The county or regional planning agency and appropriate state agency representatives and staff could also support the TAC and constituent municipalities by undertaking long-range regional planning studies and provide technical assistance in the development of local plans and ordinances. What's next? The draft model warehouse ordinance has been finalized. It has not been disseminated to the public, but it will be available soon. And municipalities could then adopt it and tweak it as they feel necessary. Continue to collaborate, meet with, and provide technical assistance to interested municipalities, counties, and other entities. Continue to share this presentation with others upon request, and continue to improve the guidance as new information becomes available. Any feedback is welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Colleen. Not sure if folks have any questions. If you do, please head over to the mic. Yeah, go ahead.
There we go. Hi, Dina. Yeah, Colleen, thank you. James Sherman here. I got to tell you, I'm not really familiar with the guidance document and certainly not the draft ordinance. But the question is, in development of the guidance document and the ordinance, did the state planning office consider mitigation measures for these warehouses, like, for instance, requiring battery electric terminal tractors or battery electric day cabs? I think there's one outside the building right now. Peterbilt has an on-road 18-wheeler day cab outside. So that's the question: is in your work and your planning and the ordinance, is there any incentives to have the fleets that go through the towns to these warehouses go electric, or any kind of zero carbon fuels?
We did look into that. I mean, there aren't that many available. I think thanks to COVID, there's a huge backlog in that. There might have been out sooner, but that was considered, and we did mention it, and it's certainly encouraged whenever they're available and it's possible.
How does the draft ordinance encourage it?
I don't think that's in the draft ordinance. It's in the guidance document, but it's not in the ordinance. Townships could certainly incorporate that into theirs. It's just, I don't think there's that many available as of yet.
Okay, well, they are available. There's a lot of them available. Okay, thank you.
Hi, thank you for that presentation, Dean Blametti, Sparta Township. Two questions. One is simply, what's the expected time frame for the draft model ordinance?
Next few weeks.
Oh, okay, that closely.
I can leave my card here. Anybody who wants me to email them the ordinance when it's available, I can send it out.
Okay, thank you. A bigger picture question. I know that you mentioned that the guidance is guidance. It's not legislation, for
Correct.
a lot of reasons.
Mm.
Do you expect, I know a lot of people are still asking for and wondering, is there some higher level action that can be taken at the state level? Is there legislation, is there something greater that can be done eventually to help support municipalities' powers and abilities here to protect themselves?
Yes, there are various bills before the state legislature involving warehouse policy, but nothing has been passed yet.
Okay.
But just like the state got involved with solar and wind turbines, they could certainly do something for warehouse siting.
Any sense of progress with that, or timing, or anything, if you had to guess? Or likelihood even?
Well, there is a bill currently before it. If you go on the legislature website, let's see. I think that's going to be coming up. We're going to be talking about that, or?
Yes, we
Yeah.
will talk about that briefly.
Yeah, there is one addressing warehouse
Mhm.
sprawl that would involve certain steps that you would have to take and review by the Office of Planning Advocacy and some additional studies.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thanks. And once we get that ordinance from Colleen and Jack, will definitely send it out to folks.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Nancy, did you have a question?
Nancy Tyndall from Allentown in Monmouth County. I'm just wondering if your guidance has been developed in connection with the other state departments, such as the Department of Transportation or DEP, and whether or not they're using the guidance in any of their considerations and approvals for some of these developments.
When the guidance was written earlier this year, it was a collaborative effort with all the necessary state agencies. I can't really speak to what they're doing currently with the guidance.
So there wasn't any conversation about trying to encourage them to use the guidance as guidance when they make decisions at all?
They were involved with the entire writing of the guidance.
Okay.
So I would assume that they're following it, but I can't comment on that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you all for your questions. I actually have one for you folks. Just a raise of hands, how many people have in their municipality changed their master plan, updated it, or updated their land use? Oh, okay, we have a couple. All right, so that's Franklin Township in Somerset County. Hi, Ted. And then, sir, what town are you with? Cranford. Okay, all right, great. So we got a couple of examples up here. So that leads us to transition perfectly to Jason. Thanks, Colleen. Yeah, this is great. Yeah.
Hey, everybody. So first question I have for you is whose community, neighborhood, town is threatened by a warehouse or an unwise development right now? Okay. And who feels that they are personally, their personal economy, financial outlook is benefited by these mega warehouses? Raise your hand if you think that. Okay, so not so good for the economy. Let's just, at least in this room, right? So what I hope to share with you all today is some techniques for defeating these unwise development projects from a grassroots level. There's various ways you can go about this, but this is the way I do it from a local grassroots level here. And we're going to use an instance in Egg Harbor City, which is in Atlantic County, within the Pinelands National Reserve, as a bit of a case study to see how you go about this. So what we're talking about is activating your network, right? So we all live in towns, communities, and you have a network of individuals that make up your community. How do you tap into that network to activate it for resistance purposes to unwise development schemes or these warehouses, for instance? So what was happening here in Egg Harbor City was there was a plan negotiated mostly behind closed doors to build a warehouse and retail complex on what's called the City Lake Park. So that's the park that was designated to be the city park since 1859. We had a lot of advantages here. And if you're going to win, you're going to need a couple of things on your side. But I just want to show you how we went about this. So first thing I want to define is what our terms here is. Grassroots. You know, what does that mean? How I define it is essentially this: coming from the community. So you all are working together to solve the problems. We're not asking bureaucrats to solve our problems for us. We're not, calling out into the ether and saying, somebody help us. We're saying, what are the tools we have? How do we create a strategy, activate and build power, and then implement that strategy for success, right? So that's coming from the community approach. So that's the opposite essentially of a hierarchical approach. So this is activating an undirected network. So in this room, we have a network of individuals. Certain of you know each other. Certain of you know some of you. Certain of you may know everybody in this room. So your nodes are the people that know a big chunk or know everybody. Those nodes, so I depicted those nodes as these bigger circles here. They have more connections, right? So you need to find those nodes and bring them onto a core team. If you're trying to operate in a hierarchy, which is what most, nonprofit organizations do, it's slow, it's exclusive. There isn't an opportunity for smaller actors to take independent action. We don't want to have to, directly tell everybody in the network, you do this, you do that. You want them self-activating. Right. But following a strategic guideline. So I'm kind of going to go through this fast, but this is a real network map because, networking is a real science, the study of networks. And that's a real map. So you can see hubs, nodes, linkages, And it's kind of helps your mental framework of what we're talking about here. So you really have to know what's coming, right? So the only way for us to really find this out is if we're attending meetings, which is what Anjak is really amazing for, to know what's actually happening. And, most of you are probably familiar with what public notices are, and you can see this public notice was printed in the newspaper. Most people aren't going to have any idea what that means. So you do need organizations with some experience, like Anjak, like Pinelands Preservation Alliance, other local community organizations who are watching for these things to come up. So this was about a redevelopment area designation that was going to go before the planning board. So the one thing you really need to have is, all right, well, what's our theory here? How are we going to win? Are we going to ask nicely for the mayor not to bulldoze our city park? Or are we going to build a network, activate a network, build power, drive turnout to a meeting to demonstrate that power, and then, have enough influence to flip votes on the council, for instance? So you really want to be specific in your strategy. Your core team should be made up of those nodes as best as possible, right? So those people with more connections in your community, with influence in the community, try to make them your core team. The most important thing to do with that core team is to have active back and forth communication. So the method for that communication in your core team, that's going to vary group to group, whether that's a text message chain, WhatsApp, is it a Facebook group, a Facebook message? You're going to have to emails, you're going to have to work that out amongst your core team. And I'm only talking about 4, 5, 6 people. Maybe you could expand that in a bigger area. Egg Harbor City was fortunately a small area. So the other thing you have to do is think about imagery, logos, photographs, videos. So, the newspaper who we got to cover the campaign, they used a photo of the lake while it was drained, right? So that's not really communicating the full value of the area that we're talking about. So I made sure before, because I knew that was going to happen, to get my drone up over the city park and take a nice aerial image to really communicate the importance of the area to people that may not be quite as familiar. The other thing you need is a great slogan, battle cry, what have you. We were lucky here in that this term, Forever Public, that was actually written in the deed in 1859. So it was a parcel of land, 400 acres, gifted to the city of Egg Harbor, gifted to Egg Harbor City. And in the deed, it said that this land shall remain forever public. It was a very early conservation restriction, essentially. And what do we want to do? We want to protect our park, very simple. So this needs to be something that's easily repeatable. So you don't want 3 paragraphs here. You want it to be short and sweet and something that's easy to roll off the tongue, easy to pass from one person to the next. So the next thing you have to do is really, really concentrate on what your narrative is. So that's what's happening, right? Why you don't like it, and what we can do about it. In this case, there was the city council wanted to give away part of the park and let a private developer clear cut it to build a warehouse and a retail complex adjacent to the lake and campground. So, that's a pretty easy thing to oppose in the public realm. And we made quick work of it. So the other thing you need to do is have a couple of platforms, because especially in this age, newspapers aren't reaching everybody. There's no single platform that's really going to reach everybody, but you have to find some platforms that you can control the message on. So there's 2 categories here. There's the platforms that you recruit from and the platforms that you absorb into, right? So you have your core team, but then you have to have a wider group of people that you can communicate to. So is that an email list? Is that a Facebook group? You need to be able to absorb people from the broader community into your network, your loose organization, your network, and be able to communicate to them directly. So In this case, I formed the Friends of Egg Harbor City Lake Park, and I use that as our absorbing activated community members. And my recruitment was from a larger Facebook that I developed, a group called the Pine Barrens, and also from our email lists and other sources of communication. So at least for internet and newspapers and other communication forms, you should think about mimetic communications. They're really simple contrasts. In this case, I went ahead and found the ugliest warehouse I could, which that's actually a warehouse in Albany, New York. And it's literally the ugliest warehouse probably in the United States. So I went ahead and photoshopped that in the area that they wanted to bulldoze and do their plans, and I used that to create a contrast. This is it exactly literally accurate? No, but I'm trying to communicate a value contrast here. These are some other examples. So one thing I wanted to point out, we talked about that undirected network versus hierarchy. I didn't tell Claire to put that post in the Egg Harbor City Lake Historical Society. I didn't tell Nanette to put it in the Egg Harbor Citywide Pride group. I didn't tell Rory to share it on her own personal social media page. This is the power of an undirected network. They can get your message out for you without having to tell your communication staff or whoever, share this post today. That's really slow. So you want to be able to be a lot quicker than that. And especially if you have a well-organized opposition. In this case, we really didn't have a strong opposition. The warehouse people, they preferred to operate behind closed doors, right? Well, our power is in the sunshine and the light. So we were way stronger than them, at least in the public sphere. So along with social media, it's important to get the newspapers, get your traditional media out there if you can. So we did that also. This is another example of undirected network activation. I didn't tell anybody to make that sign and put it on the street, but got the word out and people just did things on their own. Right. So, I tell you, we really had a weak opposition here because they didn't, if they hired a PR campaign, like a PR firm or something, we would have had a little bit more of a battle on our hands in the public sphere, but fortunately they did not. And we were able to completely dominate them from a narrative perspective. So you have to have a venue to demonstrate your network power, because in the end, this is democracy. You have to, especially in the local level, you have to show that you have power in the community. And the way to do that is to generally pick a city council meeting and drive your whole network to it. Bring your slogans, bring your signs, have one message, and try to keep everybody on message. And am I doing on time? Sometimes good. Yeah. So everybody was encouraged to tell their own personal story. I didn't write everybody bullet points or anything like that. I just, I encourage people to tell their own story. And really, I didn't even have to do that. People just did it. You can really have a lot of trust in your folks with a little bit of guidance. So in the end, so let me just back up a little bit. There was a vote. The council took 2 days after the planning board meeting, and that was probably a violation of the Sunshine Act. So they had to do another meeting, actually notice the public, invite people. So the original vote, which they had to redo, but the original vote was 7 in favor of bulldozing part of the park and giving it away to the developer, 2 opposed. This video is the vote after our campaign, and we're only talking about maybe a month here in between these votes. Okay. That's city council. They're clarifying the votes. Yes means in favor of the redevelopment. No means in favor of the redevelopment. Right. No. Clark? No. Dash? No. Ice? No. Septic? No. Chambers? No. Protocol? No. Rights? No, I still want to look at other cases for the building. little bit of fence sitting.
So, opportunities.
Getting video is important too, because now you can tell the story of your victory later on, so. And that is my presentation, so I appreciate you all coming and listening, and yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Jason, I actually have questions for you.
Sure.
So, so the planning board, all they can do is basically follow the local municipal ordinances, right? So can
Yeah.
you talk a little bit about that and what were the variances that sent it to the township council that allowed them to vote yay or nay?
So in this case, it was a redevelopment area designation that was being voted on. So all the council had to do is shoot that down, and it killed the whole plan. So the planning board is essentially just a rubber stamp for the administration. In this case, the mayor gets to appoint the planning board. Some forms of government differ. In this case, the mayor didn't get to vote, but she did, have a pitch. She was defending the redevelopment area and the warehouse, et cetera, before the vote actually took place and before public comment. But yeah, the planning board is just a rubber stamp. I mean, in my view.
Could I come?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the entire reason that we did the model ordinance is because, again, planning board is extremely hard to deny something. If it's a permitted use, there's almost no way for a planning board to deny something. We designed this to be conditionally permitted. So if they don't meet the multiple conditions that we recommend, it would have to go to the zoning board. And it's much easier for a zoning board to deny an application. But yeah, once it's before planning, you're kind of stuck with it. That's why everybody should be proactive. I'm just curious how on earth they declared that a redevelopment area. It's a park.
Well, they don't care about the law, right?
Well-
They'll stretch. The law is just as good as it is, only as good as the
But I'm
people.
just curious about
Yeah.
their fake criteria. Like,
Well,
how
they
did
call
they?
it vacant, right? They call it vacant. They would call it underutilized. They would stretch any definition.
Yeah, that's not
that you
legal
could
in any
give.
way.
They're gonna do it, legal or not. They're gonna do it.
Well, it can be
Yeah.
appealed, taken to court, et cetera.
But then you have to have the money to
Oh,
launch a
definitely. I'm
lawsuit.
just
So
saying.
they
Yeah.
they will do anything. Just put it that way. There might be a button. There might be a button on there.
Okay, hi, my name is Amy Switlick. I'm in the Clinton Township Council in Hunterdon County. I just want to play a little devil's advocate here. I know a lot of the elected officials are portrayed as they mean harm. And I can say I don't, and I like to fight for my community. And I have to say I'm very proud of my governing body currently, and my planning board is phenomenal. We are ahead of the game with all that. We're rezoning, our master plans, we're ready to go. Exxon came in and wanted to put a warehouse on their facility. It's not an allowable use. And we got them on that. We're also in the Highlands. We have tons of protection that way. It saved us. It really did. The allowable uses that they have, it's not market. Nobody's going to buy it. Research, I think we would like to preserve it. But my point is, we have been fighting with the planning board. We've been working hard. The grassroots efforts are not always informed, and it's fighting against us in points where we have to try to inform these grassroots efforts some accuracies. For instance, we just rezoned Route 31, some of the commercial lots. We just sort of consolidated it and made it more usable. Right away, this grassroots effort came in and said, they're allowing warehouses. That's not what we were doing. And as a matter of fact, it's specifically said in the ordinance, we're prohibiting warehouses. So it's extra work for us who really mean well sometimes when they're inaccurate. And even if we get to the people who are in charge of the grassroots effort, by the time we talk to them and explain it to them, it's already out there. So how do you help us politicians who really mean well to try to get these grassroots efforts to be accurate with the information that they're trying to portray?
Accuracy is never going to be accomplishable. Let me just start with that. But what you want to have is connections in your community, right? You can't control what's posted on social media, but you can have real connections in your community amongst these nodes, for instance, and help communicate to them. And they're going to help. They're going to help keep that a little bit more factual, I would say, but I just wouldn't worry about what's, as long as you're actually representing and communicating to the public and representing their interests. I mean, I think that's going to do the work for you. If the more you meet in public, the more you share in public, I think the better.
We've got auditoriums and schools to be open about it. It's just unfortunate because the less time we have to try to make the grassroots efforts, or the one in particular, accurate, is time away from us to fight. I don't mean to, I was on a grassroots effort as well for road noise once. So I get it. It's frustrating as an elected official to sometimes, we're very public. I go on social media the best I can. As an elected official, you have to be careful what you post on social media, but it's definitely frustrating. So I hope.
Well, democracy's tough,
I'm saying people who are going to grassroots efforts to please get an advocate of your local council, a council member, an EC chairman, or even the mayor. I mean, I hope you all have a good governing body. We do, because man, getting together with an elected official, grassroots effort, can just steamroll a lot. That's just my point.
Great.
Thanks.
And thanks for your work there, because that seems really important. Yeah. And one thing that can happen is a lot of these folks from our movement are now on council in town. So you can leverage that network into electoral politics.
Hi, I'm Bill Sheehan, the Hackensack Riverkeeper, and I've been dealing with land use issues since I started Riverkeeper. Did Egg Harbor never used Green Acres money for anything?
Never. They never took Green Acres money. Yeah, that's something we're working on it. Yeah.
You gotta get Green Acres overlay on that park before somebody else comes along with an idea. The other thing is, organizing the public is a really important part, and I agree with you 100%. Bringing the public out to these meetings. Believe me, I spent years of my life probably at planning board meetings that went on until 11:30, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning sometimes. But and we won, and we always won because we had the people on our side, and getting the people on your side is important, but making sure that the people that come to speak are informed, that they're not asking the, I've heard people get up in a public forum and ask a body politic to do something illegal, and that really diminishes your effectiveness when you're asking them to break the law. Like there are certain rules, there are certain regulations, they have to follow them, but the best tool is the conservation easement. Years ago, I'll give you a case study on that. Years ago, there was a political campaign going on in the city of Jersey City. The mayor called me up. He said, I'm running for office. I'm not sure I'm going to get reelected. There's a piece of land in Jersey City that we want to turn into a park. Would you be willing to take a conservation easement on that land so that the next administration can't get their hands on it? And that was the smartest thing he did with me, because 2 years into the next administration, they asked me to give up my easement so they could sell it to a developer.
Wow. Yeah.
And I had to send them a legal letter saying, are you crazy? So
that's great.
Make sure everybody's well informed when you roll them out there. We took the Meadowlands issues back in the 90s and the early 2000s. We took that statewide, and there were people from one end of the state to the other that signed petitions, went to meetings, submitted comments. Matter of fact, some of the projects that we fought received more written comments than any other projects that the New York District engineers ever did. So you have to organize and you have to make sure they're well informed.
Great, yeah.
Want to, just quickly echo, thank you, Bill, for those wonderful words, wisdom there. One of the roles of our Open Environmental Commission is to look at conservation easements because that's part of the open space public index. So you guys have a key role in that as well. Yeah, we have time
Okay.
for, yeah, go for it.
Okay, I'm with Tom's River Environmental Commission. I'm also a team captain of the New Jersey Organizing Project. That's what we do. We organize people. What I'd like to know from you is, have you tapped into any kind of sources of funding for your grassroots organizations, and what might they be?
Well, I'm an employee of Pinelands Preservation Alliance. We have various grants, we have membership. So at least for Pinelands Preservation Alliance, we are membership funded, grant funded, and foundation funded. Most of those grants and foundations do not fund grassroots advocacy. So it's really a membership funded item, I would say. If you don't have membership, you can't really do it, that's unless you just do it on your own time.
Yeah, I'll just jump in here. I know funding for environmental commissions can be tough, so sometimes we'll see a Friends of East Brunswick, and those folks could take funding from local businesses, residents, grants, etc. That's one way to get money in the coffers. No. Any more questions? Is your stomach growling? Because mine is. So we're going to wrap it up. Once more, thank you.
So one more hand.
Oh, we have a hand. Oh, we can, do you want us to come to you?
I'm Ted Chase, Franklin Township, Somerset County, formerly on the council, still on the Environmental Commission and Planning Board. And we just went through a long warehouse application. And really, the main thing I have to say is, what we didn't do was look at business and industry zone, look at its borders, where it bordered on residential zones. And in particular, in this case, we had a border with a large adult community. So we're talking about 2,000 people would be excited about this. And a warehouse was proposed on that border. Overall, the planning board has turned that legally very likely don't have a leg to stand on. What we should have done 3 years ago is look at the zone and look at those borders and say how do we keep warehouses away from the borders of the zone? We've approved a lot of other warehouses within the zone for a lot of people because there's only very few residents within it. There is close access to interstate highway and access by way of a county road areas. Perfect for warehouses, except when they border on a well-populated residential zone. In this case, I happen to was established, which was 25 years ago, when it was all empty area, and this adult community was first proposed. And at that time, the proposal had a commercial center and assisted living on that particular corner that was next to the that was in the manufacturing zone. So we couldn't have even imagined at that time this exact problem that arose. But I have a little bit of a feeling that we're locking the door after the horse is stolen. If you still have a door that you can lock, do so. The question is, so what is appropriate zone at the boundary between a business, an industry zone and residential zone? These other places in the township road have some conflict of this nature. I think I probably said that.
That's a really interesting point.
But the bottom line is check what you have.
Yeah, that's wise words. Protect what we have. I don't know, Colleen, do you want to jump into that foray of the different zones?
Well, I mean, there should have been a master plan re-exam. I mean, they're required every 10 years. They used to be every 6. But to put a large warehouse adjacent to any residential zone, I would think would be inappropriate zoning. Maybe the smaller type warehouses, but anything that we've been talking about today, the 100,000 square feet, I don't think should be adjacent to any residential zone. There should be a transition zone in between commercial offices or something like that, and then lead that into the warehouse industrial zone. So a couple miles.
There are actually 2 houses on the property that link the development when bought out at considerable expense. It occurred to me now, hey, we could have had a little bit of residential zone there based on those 2 houses and connecting to a residential zone for south. After the fact.
Yeah, sorry.
So thank you so much. And you know, that's another really good point you just made there is if you don't actually have people, you don't have people to resist. So having that community there makes it really possible to resist that warehouse. If you didn't, then like you said, you probably wouldn't hear it, Pete. Egg Harbor City, the park, a lot of people use the park. So we had that advantage that we could activate people who had a direct interest in preserving the landscape. With Mark over here, we're fighting against the bulldozing of a forest that's been designated a redevelopment area right now. And it's because there's people that live around it, we can activate them to resist.
This is a BS, but I just had to say, to talk about this for a moment, has to do with, I'm Mark Thomas, and I am a member of the Rancocas Conservancy. Yeah.
I will just wrap it up after this comment.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm extending this a little bit.
I know.
But I'm a member of the Board of Trustees of the Rancocas Conservancy, which is a land trust for the Rancocas Creek watershed in New Jersey. And one of our largest township, which is 1/6 of the watershed area, has gone about putting in redevelopment zones. And what they've been able to do, and I think this brings up the policy problem, is that the whole township is an enterprise zone. So under the enterprise zone, there are less exacting standards of what you can do in the township in order to bring some change about. And we have lost a 135-acre farm, for example, because they were able to use the less stringent requirements of the enterprise zone in combination with the redevelopment zone requirements to include that. So that brings up another issue of policy and whether or not we need to address enterprise zone. And I don't know whether you have any experience with this particular problem.
No, sorry, I really don't. I mean, an enterprise zone does make everything much easier and less restrictive for development.
Yeah, I think we're all going to go home and check all the zoning maps because certainly the warehouses came as a surprise to folks in New Jersey. It just all kind of popped up and bloomed, right, very quickly. And now what we're hearing on the ground is redevelopment, and now I'm hearing enterprise. So these are trigger words. So check your local planning and land use, and look out for that model warehouse ordinance from the state. So once again, thanks to Colleen and Jason. We really appreciate it. And thank you, folks.
Very similar. Yeah, exactly, exactly.